When winter rain came down sideways, sharp as thrown glass, Marcus learned how to disappear. He folded himself into doorways, under bus stop shelters, behind the dumpster, behind the hardware store on Fifth. It hadn't always been like that. Years ago, he had a small apartment with peeling yellow paint and a window that caught morning sun. But life is not a straight path. It bends, it slides. Sometimes it collapses altogether. His collapse happened slowly. First, it was the job. The company downsized, and Marcus found himself standing on the sidewalk with a cardboard box of staplers and old notebooks. Then came the rent he couldn't pay, the car that broke down, the friends who stopped answering his calls, not out of cruelty, but out of discomfort. People didn't know what to do with someone slipping through the cracks. So, one day, the cracks swallowed him. Homelessness taught Marcus many things he never wanted to know: how to sleep lightly, so no one could take his bag, how to ration a can of beans for 3 days, how to read the difference between people who offered help and people who offered pity. Most painful of all, how invisible a person could become. But he still carried one thing from his old life: a small rusted key on a chain. It no longer opened anything, not since he lost the apartment it belonged to. But Marcus kept it because it reminded him of a time when he had a door, and that meant he could have a door again. He just didn't know how. One particularly bitter morning, Marcus awoke to the sound of someone clearing their throat. He blinked and looked up. A woman stood there holding a paper cup of coffee. She wore scrubs and a navy blue jacket. Her hair was tied in a messy bun, and she had the tired eyes of someone who worked too many night shifts. "You were shaken in your sleep. Thought you might need this." Marcus hesitated. People sometimes gave things with strings attached. Conversations he didn't want, prayers he didn't ask for, lectures about life choices. But this woman just held the cup patiently. He took it. "Thank you. I'm Alina. If you ever want a hot meal, I'll help out at St. Mary's Shelter on Jefferson. We don't ask questions." Marcus didn't plan on going. Bride was a stubborn roommate. But that night the cold bit at his bones, and he remembered the warmth in Alina's voice. So he walked to St. Mary's. That decision, small, almost accidental, became the first turn in a long road. At the shelter he met a caseworker named Jonah, a soft-spoken man with shoulders broad enough to lift furniture and a heart soft enough to care about every stranger who walked through the door. "You got any goals?" Jonah asked after a few visits. "Goals?" Marcus laughed. He wore a donated coat 3 sizes too big. He still slept with one shoe on in case someone stole the other. "That counts," Jonah said. "But maybe we can stretch the goal a little. What did you do before?" "I was a maintenance man, good at fixing things, pipes, wiring, doors, whatever you needed." Jonah's eyes lit up. "We partner with a program that helps people get licenses and apprenticeships. You want to try? No pressure." Marcus wanted to say no. He was afraid of failing, of trying and falling short, of proving to himself that the person he used to be was gone forever. But the rusted key hung against his chest and reminded him that he once opened doors, not only fixed them. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I want to try." The program wasn't easy. It required waking early, attending workshops, relearning things his mind hadn't touched in years, fighting exhaustion and doubt. Some days he wanted to quit. But every time he felt the urge to walk away, Alina or Jonah would appear with a word, a sandwich, or simply a steady presence. With their help and his own relentless grit, Marcus completed the certification. He started an apprenticeship at a repair company run by a gruff man named Harold, who pretended not to care about anything, but secretly kept extra gloves in the truck because he noticed Marcus's hands were always cold. One day, while fixing a broken door hinge at an apartment complex, Marcus realized something. He was no longer invisible. People nodded at him, thanked him, even joked with him. He had a schedule, a uniform, a sense of purpose. Slowly, life began to move again. With his first real paycheck, he bought something he hadn't owned in years, a wallet. Then he saved. That took months. Maybe it took the discipline stronger than anything he'd ever known. But the day came when he stood in front of a small studio apartment on Maple Street. The building was old but clean. The landlord jingled the set of keys in his hand. "You sure you're ready?" the landlord asked. Marcus nodded. His heart hammered. "I'm ready." The landlord placed the new key in Marcus's palm. It felt heavier than he expected. Heavy with meaning. That night, Marcus placed the old rusted key next to the new one on the counter. He stared at them for a long time. One represented a life lost, the other, a life rebuilt. And suddenly, he realized something important. The old key was never useless. It had carried hope. It had kept him moving. He tied both keys together on the same chain. Months passed. Marcus thrived at work. Harold promoted him. He bought a used bicycle. He saved for better tools. And every week, without fail, he returned to St. Mary's, this time as a volunteer. One evening, he found a young man curled in the sheltered doorway, shivering, eyes wary and worn. "You hungry?" Marcus asked gently. "Depends. You gonna preach at me?" Marcus smiled. "No preaching. Just food, and maybe a hot place to sit a while." The young man stood slowly, following Marcus inside. As the door closed behind them, Marcus felt the weight of the key around his neck, a reminder of where he had been and the doors he could now open for others. He wasn't just rebuilding his life anymore. He was holding the door open for someone else to walk through.